Hi. So today I'm going to present the language and lingo of a contract to buy and sell. So I'm going to just pretend that I'm presenting this and give you the cadence to a buyer. We'll first do the contract to buy and sell. So here it goes. The contract to buy and sell is 19 pages long. Everything in black and white come from this is the standard real estate contract from the state of Colorado. And the things that are in blue on the contract I have added to make it pertain to you. So first we'll check that I have your name and spelling as you want to take title correct, and that the seller's name, and then we have the legal address, also known as 1715 Whitehall Drive. We are going to talk about the inclusions and the exclusions in the contract. We are going to include 2 remote controls, the dishwasher, the microwave, the kitchen refrigerator, the oven, the range, and all window coverings as seen on 6/8 of 2016. We are going to change ownership of the attached garage, and we're going to exclude the hot tub, the curtains in the dining room, the bike racks and gladiator cabinets in the garage, the clothes washer, the clothes dryer, the desks in the sewing room, and the desks in the office. There are no water rights, there are no growing crops, there are no water certificates. The next section of the contract is the section that describes the dates and deadlines. There are dates and deadlines in this contract that we adhere to as the buyer, that the seller adheres to, the title company, and the lender. So this contract is used for all types of real estate, and I'm going to talk to you about the things that specifically apply to you. The first thing that we're going to talk about is our alternative earnest money deadline. That's the date in which we have to turn the earnest money into the title company. The earnest money is part of your down payment, and it says that we intend to move forward in good faith, that we're putting our money where our mouth is, and that as long as we adhere to our dates and deadlines, that money is protected by your contract. Should we wake up the day of closing and decide we don't want to buy the house, then the seller would have the right to keep your earnest money. The second section talks about title, and these are the dates and deadlines in which the title company has to adhere to start doing the title research and provide us with information that the home is free and clear to transfer to the new buyer. The next section talks about homeowners association. Those are the dates in which the seller has to provide us the documents that decide how the house is governed within their HOA, and then we decide whether or not we can live under those guidelines and move forward with the contract. The next section talks about the seller's property disclosure. That's the date in which the seller provides to us a document that gives us the most comprehensive information that the seller has or is willing to provide on the house. It should talk about the age of the appliances, any roof leaks, any water intrusions, any electrical problems, whether things work or don't work, and when they were replaced. The next section talks about the loan. The loan condition deadline and the loan documents are all going to be provided by the lender. Okay, the last deadline in our contract is generally our loan objection deadline. Our loan objection deadline states in the contract that it's at the buyer's sole subjective discretion that they agree to the terms of the loan. So that deadline is used only if the buyer finds out that the loan that they are offered is something they can't live with. Okay? The appraisal deadline is set here for the lender to order the appraisal by a third party. That third party goes out, completes the appraisal, and returns it to the lender, and there's some dates and deadlines that the lender will communicate to the appraiser. Should we decide to have a survey in our contract, we have some dates and deadlines in the next section that we have to adhere to have it ordered and delivered. Then the next section talks about inspection. That's the date in which we need to complete all of our inspections on the property. There are generally 3 types of inspections that I recommend as a buyer's agent. One is a general full home inspection. The second is a radon test, and the third would be a sewer line inspection. And it's up to the buyer as to whether or not they want to complete those 3. But I think it's always a good idea to recommend that those are the 3 major ones. The next section talks about closing and possession. So the date in which we would like to close the property and take possession. And then the last section in the dates and deadlines is the acceptance date, the date in which we would like the sellers to either accept, reject, or counter our offer. So that's the full dates and deadlines section. As we go through the contract, you'll notice that in the dates and deadlines section, there's a reference column. That reference column is the paragraph that follows in the next few pages that talk about each one of those deadlines. So the bulk of the contract really is a reference back to those dates and deadlines for your review. I'm happy to answer any of those questions as we get there. We are going to talk about the purchase price and the terms. We're offering on the contract $439,000 with $5,000 as earnest money, and in your case, you're not getting a new loan, and so you'll just bring the rest cash at closing. There are no seller concessions. Seller concessions would be something where the buyer is requesting that the seller pay for some of the closing costs. The earnest money will be a personal check to be held by Fidelity Title, again, a third party that holds that for us until we get to the closing process of the contract. That we do agree that if there is any return of earnest money, that there is a form that we sign, and we agree to it with the seller as the reason why we're returning the earnest money. That we do have the funds available for the contract. And in this case, we're not obtaining a loan, but the next few pages discuss the type of loan that you would be obtaining. So for example, an FHA loan, a VA loan, or a conventional loan. The cost of the appraisal is always paid by the buyer. It'll be up to your lender whether or not your buyer is allowed to write a check or whether those costs can be moved into their loan, but that's a question for the lender. That the seller will provide us with the HOA documents. That the seller will select the title insurance company. As a buyer, you do have the right to select your own title insurance company. However, if we stick with the company that the seller has selected, oftentimes we'll find a bundled rate to be less expensive than selecting our own title company. We have requested that there be owner's extended coverage. That's coverage that's generally always required by a lender, and it ensures the title policy from the time of the signing to the time of the filing, also considered the gap. It's generally about $80, and then we specify that the buyer is willing to pay for those fees. That we are entitled to get copies of all documents, and that the deadlines for title documents are defined in the first paragraph. The next section is talking about the dates and deadlines and the right to object to the title, so that's something to review. This next page talks about the ILC and the survey and what dates and deadlines apply there. That the next section talks about the disclosures, the inspections. There's no dates or deadlines or anything that we filled in here other than that we agree that if we find something in our inspection process that we will terminate within a timely manner to ensure that the sellers can get the property back on the market. That there are no existing leases on the property. That there is potable water on the property and that we have received information about where the source of water comes from and that there is no well. That if there's any reason for you to be concerned about methamphetamine, it is the responsibility of the buyer to contact local authorities to see if they believe that there's been any mischief or any reason to believe that additional testing should be performed on the home. That the closing instructions are not attached. Generally, offices will allow us to use those closing instructions from the title company. The closing date will be set by the listing agent. Obviously, they will request information from us as the buyer's agent as to when that appointment works, but the listing agent is responsible for contacting the title company and setting the appointment. We're going to transfer title by general warranty deed. That does provide the most protection to both the buyer and the seller to ensure that the property is free and clear to transfer. Closing costs will be paid half by buyer and half by seller. In this particular paragraph, we're discussing the closing fee charged by the title company in order to host the appointment. This is not the closing fees for the buyer, but this is merely the fee charged by the title company to transact the closing, generally around $350. That should there be a status letter, so that status letter is a document provided by the HOA to ensure that the existing seller has paid their HOA fees in full. That status letter will be paid by the seller. It's the seller's responsibility to prove to the title company that they are in good standing with the HOA. Should there be a fee associated with the transfer into the name of the buyer will pay those fees. It's similar to changing the utilities or the cable into your name, it's a fee that could be charged in order to do that. There is no local transfer tax. There is no water transfer fees, no sales and use tax. Prorations of taxes will be paid on the most recent mill levy. In Colorado, we pay our taxes in arrears. So what this means is that the seller will be responsible for the taxes from January 1st to our closing date, and you'll see a credit into your escrow account at closing. That way, when the taxes come due the following year, you've already been credited from the seller, and we're not waiting for any additional payments from them. The final tax settlement is final at closing, and you'll have some additional documents to sign at title. The HOA assessments are currently $250 per year, and they will prorate those as well from our beginning of the month to our closing date. Possession, we will take possession of the property at the delivery of deed, which means when you sign your documents and pay your money, you'll get the keys. If for any reason the seller has not abandoned the property and cleaned it to our satisfaction, or if there's any reason why you can't take possession at closing, we have stipulated in the contract that the seller provides to you $200 per day, per diem, for each day that they don't have the problem mitigated. Okay? Any dates or deadlines that should happen to fall on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday will not be extended to the next business day. So therefore, the dates that we find in our dates and deadlines table are hard dates. We don't have to move them forward. If you'd like to have this document, this contract reviewed by legal or tax counsel, I'd be happy to provide you additional paper copies or an electronic copy for you to send over. That we do agree to mediation before arbitration if we have any issues with our contract. Same with earnest money. If for some reason we withdraw from the contract and we have a dispute from the sellers based on our earnest money, we agree to mediation prior to litigation on it. And then should we decide to terminate, we do agree to do that in a timely fashion so that they can get their home back on the market. We agree to do business via fax, internet, and email. And under our additional provisions, we have also stipulated that the seller is to deliver the property professionally cleaned, including windows, all kitchen appliances, and bathrooms, all debris and seller's personal property to be removed. And in this case, we've also stipulated that the seller is to remove the dying and dead aspen tree from the backyard. I'll just need your signature and your date at the bottom.